Good evening, everybody. As you have figured out, you are currently on mute and we've got your video disabled as well. We're going to wait just about 1 or 2 more minutes because we still have folks coming in. My name is Tim Keyports. I'm the president of the Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association, and we look forward to hearing about auxiliary dwelling units from a resident and architect who lives right here in Seminole Heights. His name is Patrick Thorpe. He's the past president of AIA, as well as a lot of other credentials, and he might tell you about at the very end of the presentation. In addition to Patrick, we reached out to Eric Cotton, who is City of Tampa representative and an expert in this area. So in just a minute, we are going to switch over and allow Patrick to begin the presentation.
I'm looking for.
And one more comment, we do have a chat window available. So if you have questions during the presentation, you can put those in the chat window. And we have a couple of folks on the side who will be gathering those questions. As you can imagine, we anticipate 100 or more folks, so we're not going to be able to get to everybody's question. And just as a reminder, this is not targeted at any individual circumstance. It's more just general education. So if you've got specific questions, you'll want to talk to somebody after the fact. So we're not going to be able to address those in the chat window. So with that, again, I'm going to introduce Patrick Thorpe, local resident of Seminole Heights, and the gentleman who's going to be presenting tonight, along with Eric Cotton from the City of Tampa. Patrick, if you're ready, I'll hand it over.
Let's go. Good evening, everybody. How are you all doing tonight? I'm expecting you all to say wonderful, and you're all happy to be here, and I'm happy to have you here. I do not know where Eric is in this list right now. So Eric, if you are out there and you can hear me, please send me a text or an email so that I can unmute you and get you into the conversation. But until we hear from him, let's get started. I know everybody's ready, willing, and able to get going here. So as Tim said, my name is Patrick Thorpe. I am an architect and the owner of Allegedly Design, based here in Seminole Heights. And we should be joined shortly by City of Tampa Interim Manager and Zoning Supervisor, Eric Cotton. So let's start the presentation with some common questions and answers about what people want to know about accessory dwelling units. First off, what is an accessory dwelling unit? Commonly referred to as an ADU. It's as you can see by the definition here, it's basically just an accessory living space, right? It is in your property, a living space where someone can habitate on your property. These are allowed by city of code within residential lots in Seminole Heights, also commercial properties and industrial. But tonight we're just going to focus on the single family residential aspect. One big question that we always see, how much does it cost to build an accessory dwelling unit? Well, that's a very, very broad stroke question to ask. Typically we say that it's $200 per square foot, but that number should include everything from soup to nuts turnkey construction. So when I say turnkey, I'm talking about the cost for your design, your engineering, your permit fees, your construction, everything. Now that number can range quite significantly based on what level finishes you choose to have and what types of materials you use. Next question, how long does it take to get a permit? Well, the thing is with accessory dwelling units, even though you're allowed by right to have them on your property, you still have to go through the special use application process, which does require a public notice mailer and city review and approval. depending on whether you do an accessory dwelling unit or an extended family residence, which we'll cover later, there are different requirements. But on average, you can expect the process to take 14 to 16 weeks if you don't get any kickbacks and it's just smooth sailing. Do you need an architect to design your ADU? Of course not. You can do it yourself if you have the requisite experience, but if you're not going to hire an architect, you're probably not going to get the best product. A little sales pitch right there for you. Can you rent your ADU to make additional income? Yes, you can. You are allowed to process this as an accessory dwelling unit, and you can rent that out to somebody in the community and make some additional income. There are, however, some specific requirements that you need to be aware of when you are going through the accessory dwelling unit application process. Oh, I just got an email from Eric. He is here under Gail. I'm going to ask him to unmute. Eric, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Alrighty. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Everybody,
On my wife's computer, so therefore I became Gail for the night.
Eric Cotton, this is everybody. Everybody, this is Eric Cotton. So,
Good evening, all.
Since you're here, Eric, I will let you chime in on these two parts, these questions, the difference between an accessory dwelling unit and an extended family residence. If you'd like to give a quick breakdown on your take on the difference between the two.
Yes, sir. So as Patrick has on the slide, an accessory dwelling unit is an allowable use through the special use process in Seminole Heights. And it gives you the ability to actually rent the property and have an income stream off of it. Something that nowhere else in the city, except for an area around Lowry Park, allows for. Elsewhere in the city and in Seminole Heights, there's also a thing called an extended family residence. There's a difference between the two. Primarily is an extended family residence cannot be rented. It can be, you can have a kitchen in it. You can do everything that's the same as an ADU. You just can't rent it. And those are the two primary differences.
So is everybody seeing this red mark that's showing up on the screen? Because I'm not sure why that's happening, but if that's you, please stop. So how do you get started planning for your ADU? Well, the first thing you want to do is obtain your compact property record card from the Hillsborough County Property Appraisers website. Don't worry, we're going to show you exactly how to do that tonight. Next, you're going to want to contact a surveyor and get an up-to-date drawing of your property that has the following information. This is all very important because if you do not have this, the city will not accept your application and you will not be able to move on to step 2 in the review process. So it's very important that when you contact your surveyor, you have all 3 of the items that we have listed here on your survey. And typically the city does ask that the survey be within 1 year of having been completed. So that's a recent survey. And then of course, speak with an architect. You have a lot of questions about what you want to do. You have a lot of goals that you want to meet. It's best to have a conversation early on with a design professional so that you can understand exactly what it takes to get you to where you want to be. Now, it's always recommended that you only work with licensed insured professionals. This is the best way for you to protect yourself. Ask for references, get 3 quotes. Remember, everything that you're going to do, everything that you're going to submit to the city is public record. So you want to trust the people that you're working with to put the information on the property in a way that is going to protect you. Oh, hang on. I'm getting a text to turn off annotations. I don't know how to do that. So if somebody would like to inform me how to do that, I will be very happy to do that. Oh, sorry. Bear with me, folks, for 1 second while we try and figure this out. Okay, I think the red mark is gone.
Yep.
And hopefully we don't have any more annotations coming up. So we'll move forward. And again, one point I always like to make here is that please always get 3 quotes. Even when you're talking to your architects, talk to 3 architects, but only hire me. That's all I'm saying. So tonight's learning objectives. First thing we're going to do, we're going to navigate the Municode website. This is where you're going to find a lot of the information that we're going to show you tonight. This is all online. Anything that you want to know about what we have presented or what we may have not presented, you can find the information on this website. It all spells it out. And a lot of the images that you're going to see came directly from here. Next, we're going to go on to the City of Tampa Acela website so you can get familiar with where we're going to be submitting all the documents. You're going to learn how to search for the property and the record and just navigate that website so you understand how to track your application once it's submitted. And then finally, we're going to look at the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser website and how you obtain your compact property record card. And basically, this is all just to get you familiar with the Seminole Heights form-based zoning code so that you really get an understanding of the basics for what it takes to do an accessory dwelling unit. So I'm going to try clicking this link here to Municode, and that should bring us up. Eric, can you see the Municode page?
Yep, I see a mountain I see an ocean with a mountain. There we go. There it is.
Okay, so this is Municode. This is just the library. We're going to start by going to Chapter 27, which is the zoning and land development. We are in Article 3, Division 2, Subdivision 5, Seminole Heights District. Everything that we're going to discuss is listed in this section. So at your leisure, you can read through all of this, and anything that you want to know from the presentation, you will be able to find here. So let's see how we get back to our bear with me one moment. Okay. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and we're going to go to the City of Tampa Acela website.
You have it up already. Okay.
So we'll just log in under my account. Shouldn't have anything there that we can't not say. So Eric, if you want to walk us through this, I will be your eyes.
Okay. So when you always have to register for an account when you're submitting an application. Without the account registration, you can't move forward. Sometimes, like if you hire Patrick or you hire another architect or a contractor to do certain work, they'll already have an Acela account. They could process an application for you. You don't have to do it yourself. But if you're going to do the application, the special use yourself, you're to click on New. Planning application. Then agree to everything like you have a choice. Then you would click on planning applications again, and you'll scroll down till you find special use 1.
General or
Special use 1, general. And at this point, it becomes almost basically fill in the blank. The big key is when you put in your street address, just put in the street name and the street number. Don't put any other additional information on there.
do we want
If you want to use 1400 North Boulevard, because that's what everybody always uses when they're doing a testing, just type in Boulevard. No, leave the N off.
Right.
So this is the City of Tampa's Construction Services Center. So that's, we'll bring it up. That gives you all the basic information. I just got joined by one of our dogs. Then from there, you would hit continue application. Now, once you register for an account, you would hit select from account. In Patrick's case, he would be on there. So he would select from account, his name will come up as an associated contact, and then again, hit continue. So the proposed special use would be an accessory dwelling unit, and that is dwelling accessory, okay. Everything else can theoretically stay blank, unless there's an asterisk next to it, you don't need to fill it in. At this point, you could, now, here's the difference. So that's asking, you'll see some information about the extended family residence. If you're applying for that versus an ADU, you should fill that part in. If you're doing an ADU, which is probably what most of y'all want to be doing, you can leave that part blank. As Patrick was saying, you do need to have a site plan, so we'd be asking you for a site plan and a survey. One other document that's required, which staff can provide you, and it should be, there'd be applications still being finalized, but there's an affidavit of ownership that would be set as a property owner. You would sign off, and if you hired an architect or a contractor to do this for you, they would sign off as the agent. And that would be uploaded as well as your site plans and any elevations to this portion of the application. So I think you can skip over. I don't know if you have to put anything in here right now anyway.
I think we're good.
So this would then give you a summary of what you're doing. Yeah, Patrick Thorpe, the applicant, he's doing an accessory dwelling unit. Your current land use is residential. It has some other information that just defaults because of the code section. Now, the way it works, at this point, you're basically done with the seller. I think when you hit continue application, you go to the pays. I think it should be the pay portion. And this is where you want to cancel it so you don't have to worry about paying $50. The fees, I think it's $600 and some odd for an accessory dwelling unit. An extended family residence, I believe, is around $190. But when you first submit the application, you don't pay for it at that point. Staff will invoice, once your application is complete and ready to be processed, will then invoice you your fee. This is a noticed noticed process. There's no public hearing, but there is public notice given out. We do provide you with the letter that you have to send out and the sign that has to be posted in the yard.
All right. So that's a good introduction as to what you would see when you get onto a cella.
Right.
And so now we're going to go to, well, we're going to go back. I think I just exited the presentation. Check, check. Clearly, I don't do this too often, so forgive me, everybody. Property Appraisers website. Now, this is where you're going to find a lot of really good information about your property. And again, this is all public record. So when you go to hcpafl.org, brings you up to the property search area. So you can search by your name or your address if you want. Let's see, does 1400 North Boulevard show up, Eric?
I'm not sure. It might be under 1300 North Boulevard.
Oh,
no, it's, yep, it does. Okay.
Aw, snap. Something went wrong. Well, just as an example, here is the City of Tampa Building Department. So this is what you get when you come looking for your property record card. Now, this has a lot of great information on here, and we are going to show you a residential example here shortly, but there are some neat things where if you click on this image here, you can get a Google Street View or an aerial image. If you click on this map, it will actually bring you to a GIS mapping function, which will unlock some other neat information about your property and actually give you a whole lot of other tools. But That's not something that we're really going to get into right now. We're going to get back to the presentation and get specific about the accessory dwelling units. So section 27-123, this is straight from the Municode website. Eric, if you'd like to brief us on these points as they come up. And
Okay, so for an accessory dwelling unit, the maximum size is 950 square feet, but the accessory structure limitation is 15% of your lot size up to the 950 square feet. So if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, the largest structure you could have on there as an accessory structure would be 750 square feet. If you have a 10,000 square foot lot, the maximum size, even though 15% is 1,500, the maximum size you can have is 950 square feet. Can only be owner occupied, so the front house, you can't have a rental in the front and a rental in the back. You have to basically homestead the property that you're going to have the accessory dwelling unit in. Consider that, but no more than 2 people. And we do an annual inspection. We have not done those this year because of COVID, but normally we do an annual inspection. We schedule it, we go out on site just to confirm who's still living there, if it's still a relative, if it's a relative, if it's the same people that have been there previously. Now, I know it says a new special use and public hearing will be required. If I'm living in your accessory dwelling unit and I move out, I'm in college, I move out, I go back up north or wherever, and another college student were to move in, we don't make you go through this process a second time. We do have some leeway in that, and we won't make you. We don't require the new public hearing. Not excuse me, the new application process. That's like overkill on our side. We don't really need. We'll just update our records to reflect who the new person is.
so sorry to cut that slide off there.
No, I'm fine.
Let's take a look at the compact record card real quick and see what kind of information would be important to you. So when we go back to the Hillsborough County Property Appraisers website and we find our property and we go to print it, this is what we'll get. We'll get a quick page printout that gives you some assessed value of your property. It will give you a very basic floor plan of what areas are being calculated and a breakdown of those areas. It also gives you a list of extra features and when they were put onto the tax rolls. It will tell you what year your building was built and some basic information about your construction type. The other important things are your zoning lot right here, and then the size of your lot. So 70 by 140 is the size of this lot. We're Seminole Heights residential. So as Eric said, with the 950 square foot max, you would be allowed to do that on a lot this size. If this number was 50 and this was 100, then you would not be allowed to go up to the 950 square feet, and you would be limited to the 750 as we had said. So when you're going to talk to your architect or your designer, this is a very good sheet to bring with you for that initial conversation, because it gives us a lot of information about what we're going to be working with. And it allows us to find your property and have good conversations before we get too deep into the process. So let's get into the code itself. Section 27-11.21a. This is the stuff that you're going to find on Municode. This is the technical data. So right here we have on the left a diagram of your typical general building envelope, general building placement envelope for the main residence. Now we're showing this because in this section you also have information not only regarding your primary building, but your accessory building and the setback requirements that go with it. There's also notes in here that are very specific as to what you're allowed to build on your property and how you get there with setbacks. So when we look at this chart here, we've got our building placement, and we have the F, SS, SI, and R. Those are all your yard setbacks. F is your front yard on your principal street. SS is your side yard if you have a side street. SI is side interior. If you're not on a street corner and you have buildings on either side of you, then you have 2 side interior setbacks, and then you have your rear setback. You may also have a build to line based on the location of your house, whether you have a side street and a principal street. You may have 2 build to lines that you're required to put your structure to, or you may only have 1, or you may have none. That's also an opportunity. Now we're looking at the building section. So if you have a single story or a 2-story building, this gives you information about your finished grade and your finished floor height and how high your principal building height is allowed to be, along with miscellaneous standards. And again, here we find the code language about the maximum gross floor area, 15% of the total area of the existing zoning lot, up to a maximum of 950 feet. Other important information to have here is the principal building height. You're limited to 2 stories at 35 feet, and the accessory building height is also limited to 2 stories, but 22.5 feet. There are some other caveats with that though. Like if your accessory building is located within 20 feet of a 1-story residential principal building not located on your property, then you are limited to a 15-foot maximum height. So if your neighbor's main residence is within 20 feet of your property line, then you cannot use the 22.5 feet. You have to be at 15 feet. So this is all very important information during the planning process when you're looking at what you're going to build on your property. Next, we have section 211.2.1C. This also is just a diagram of where the accessory building can be located on the site, and a little bit more information on parking placement and additional notes on how the parking can work and how many parking spaces you're allowed to have and how many you're required to have. Now, if you notice, your accessory building, it can have a garage or it cannot have a garage or a carport. That's up to you. If you want to do like a 2-story, a garage on the first floor, an apartment on the second, or if you just want to have a garage without an apartment, this is where you come to find the requirements for where that building can be located. So again, your front setbacks, your side street, your side interior, and your rear setbacks, all things to be considered depending on, now we do have to go back. We're not going to do it right now, but if you were doing an accessory building that is a dwelling unit, then your front setbacks are going to be different, like we saw in the previous slide. Your front setback will actually be 60 feet, not 18 like is shown here. Now, Eric, there's a lot of confusion about how many parking spots are required on lots when you're doing an accessory dwelling unit versus an extended family residence. Would you care to enlighten us on how the city reviews the parking requirements?
Yes, sir. So an extended family residence does not require an additional parking space. So the typical single family home in Seminole Heights requires 2 spaces. An accessory dwelling unit, because it's another unit, truly a second freestanding unit on the property, that requires its own parking space. It only requires 1. I know the code says if it's a 2-bedroom, you need 1.5 spaces, but we only require 1 for the accessory dwelling unit. So your typical single family home with an accessory dwelling unit needs 3 parking spaces. The kicker is a lot of the homes in Seminole Heights that have the long driveways, they go to the garage, detached structure in the back. You can only do tandem parking for the single family. You can't have 3 parking spaces in a row. So you have to be able to make it so you can have 2 parking spaces tandem for the single family, and then 1 parking space adjacent to the other 2 spaces for the accessory dwelling unit.
So folks, we're
Makes sense if it's drawn out, which we didn't do, but you know.
Yeah, we're going to go through
I think that's understandable
as we continue. So now you may be asking why all of this information is important and why is the code set up like this? Well, the reality is, from a planning standpoint, everybody has rights to their property, and you have to be considerate of your neighbor's rights. Things like air rights, where you don't want to build something so tall that you may block the ability for the sun to get to your neighbor's house. So that's why there are specific height limitations and all these sorts of things that get defined in the code. It's really to help you get where you want to be with the development of your property while still being a good neighbor. So how do we figure out what type of building you can build on your property? You go around Seminole Heights and you see all these different kinds of houses, and they're all really nice and they're all sorts of different kinds. But how do we know what we can do on our property? Well, that's where we have to look at the Seminole Heights Residential Building Forms maps. These are basically a set of maps that will identify what type of property you have based on the residential building form. As you can see, we've got a key up here that just shows the several types of the residential building forms and where they all lay out based on the location in the city. So you can have multiple streets that have multiple different property types all within one section. Like here we have all three. We have ranch, we have eclectic, and we have craftsman southern vernacular if we're looking at the image on the right. The image on the left, we've got the historic district, and then just to the north of that, we can see all the different types of properties there. So this is important because, as we'll see later in the presentation, depending on your property type, there are specific limitations to what you can build and how it can look on your property. So let's take a look at an example. We're going to build some site data here, and we're going to then take a look at a site plan, and we're going to kind of critique it. So the first thing I want to know, what's my zoning? Well, for this project, we have just your standard Seminole Heights residential zoning. Am I going to build an accessory dwelling unit, or am I going to build an extended family residence? I'm just going to do a one-bedroom extended family residence, which, as we said before, we only need now to provide parking for 2 cars, and tandem parking is allowed for the 2 cars only with the extended family residence. What's my residential building form? Well, I looked at the map and I looked at the address and I figured out that I am a craftsman residential building. Okay, so what does that tell me? Well, when I go through the code and I look at all the requirements, I know that my floor height needs to be 18 to 24 inches above grade. That's one of the requirements. My lot size is 50 by 100. So what does that tell me? It means that I can only have 750 square foot, because that's the 15% of the total area of the existing zoning lot. So I can't do the 950 because I'm limited by my lot size. Do I have any easements on the property? Now, this is where the survey again becomes very important, because you are limited by the easements on your property. If you have water, sewer, or electric service, you may not have the right to build on part of your property because the city or the utility company has to maintain access. So in this case, no, we don't have any easements to worry about. Or am I in the historic district? Because if you're in the historic district, that comes with some specific requirements as well that we're not going to cover in this session. That's actually a different session that we could have all together. Is there any existing accessory structures? Yes, there's an existing 1-car garage on this property, and it's over 50 years old. So I do have to get color photos on all sides of that and submit that to the city for documentation for historic preservation. Here's an interesting one. Am I on a 25-mile-per-hour posted street? Yes, I am. What does that do for me? It means that my apron for my driveway can have 3-foot flares, which is half of the width of what is required for a street that is not posted at 25 miles an hour. This might not make a lot of sense right now, but when we get into the example, it will. So, is my new extended family residence within 20 feet of an existing 1-story primary residence not on the subject property? Yes, it is. So that means that I can only have a 15-foot tall building on my site. Another very important one, and we talked about this again with the survey, with the tree locations. Are there any protected or grand trees on my property? No, that's a very good thing. So let's talk about what's required with the residential building form. Again, we know that we're craftsmen. So here we have a list of some of the details that you should consider when you're designing your building. Your finished floor elevation has to be 18 to 24 inches in addition to FEMA requirements. So FEMA requires, if you are in a flood zone, you have to be at a certain elevation. The city of Tampa requires you to be 16 inches, 18 inches above the crown of the road. So this may be in addition to any other flooding requirements, but for now, we're just going to say that we have to be 18 to 24 inches above grade. You are allowed to have a front porch. It is encouraged that you have one. If you are going to have a porch, it has to be a minimum width of the front facade. And if it has to have a minimum to maximum depth, the roof pitch also has to be considered. You also have to have your details. Like if you look on the images, you can see the exposed rafters are pointed out. That's one of the very craftsman style details. A lot of ornate, we like to call it icing on the cake, that you'll see on buildings. And then you can have a garage that's not typically attached, or you can have a carport porte-cochere where you would drive through into the backyard. So knowing these things, now I have a really good idea of what my client is looking for and what I have to provide them for a design. And so when I go to my site plan, in yellow outline, I have the existing residence. These green dots are all the trees on the property. And the red outline is the new extended family residence. Now, if you look towards the front, toward the lower part of the screen, you can see that we have the driveway apron. You have a 7-foot wide driveway and then 3-foot apron flares on both sides. And then 10 feet towards your property line is your paved apron. Now, if you were not on a 25-mile-an-hour posted street, those 3 feet flares would have to be 6 feet wide each. And your driveway would also have to be a minimum of 8 feet. Now, that's important because you also have to start your apron flares 1 foot off of the property line. So when you do the math, 6, 12, 8 plus the 1 foot, that's 21 feet in from the corner of your property line. That's how much of your front property line you're going to take up just with your apron. And now you have to be able to maneuver your car onto the driveway and get the parking there. And remember, in Seminole Heights, you cannot park in front of your house. So in this solution, we have a driveway that kind of bends off to one side and then comes back and meets up with the existing. And that gives us our 2-car tandem parking requirement. And we have our extended family residence that is, this example is 600 square feet. So we're under the 750. And we're not going to get into the elevation details or anything like that because that's a much deeper conversation about the design. But as far as a compliant site plan, Eric, do you see anything that jumps out at you as non-compliant with what we have shown?
No, not on this plan, no.
Okay, great. So that's good for us because that means we can move forward into the next process and we can get the extended family residence under construction. So let's look at another example project. Zoning, so it says same, Seminole Heights RS. Is this an accessory dwelling unit? Yes, it is. It's going to be a 1-bedroom accessory dwelling unit above a 1.5-car garage. So what does that mean? Got to have 3 cars because it's an accessory dwelling unit. And we know that we can't do the tandem solution. So we have to be able to park 2 cars side by side. What's the residential building form? Why, it's ranch style. Very nice. So that means our floor height is typically 0 feet above grade. Lot size is 70 by 140. So that means that we can use the 950 square foot gross floor area max allowable by code. Do we have any easements on the property? Yes, we do. We have a 5-foot sewer and power easement at the rear of the property for our sanitary sewer and our electric, and then our water service comes from the front street. Are we in the historic district? Again, we're not, because that would be a much deeper conversation that we don't have time for right now. Are there any existing structures on the property? Yes, there was an existing pre-manufactured metal shed that was put in 2001, so it's not over 50 years old, so we don't really need to worry about it. That's just going to go away. 25-mile-an-hour posted street? No, so we have to look at our apron. Are we within 20 feet of an existing primary residence? No, so that's good news, because that means that we can do the 22.5-foot tall building. So we'll have the 1.5 car garage with the second floor and 22.5-foot max height. Do we have any protected or grand trees? Yes, we do. So we have to be cognizant of that, because we're going to have tree barricades. And it's always recommended that you have the city come out and do a tree consultation, or have a certified arborist provide an inspection to know, really just to tell you what condition those trees are in and what work can be done around them to make sure that our healthy tree canopy in the neighborhood is protected. So the ranch building form, let's take a look here. Much simpler than our craftsman friends, right? Again, our finished floor is 0 inches, but we still have to be 18 inches above the crown of the road. If we're going to have a porch, it can only be on the front. It would be a minimum of 5 feet. For the width, the depth can be 3 to 8. We typically have lower sloped roofs, but you can do a 6 to 12. The details on the building are actually quite varied, but as you see, they typically tend to push long horizontal lines to get a wider building, a little bit shorter, not so much on the vertical, but more emphasis on the horizontal. And then the garage and carport details as well. They can be integrated to the front facade or pushed back further from the face of the building. So let's look at a site plan here for this. Again, main residence outlined in yellow, our accessory dwelling units in red, and our oak trees are in green. Now, we've left the existing apron on the street to remain because we're not triggering anything where we would have to put a new apron in. We're just going to use the existing driveway there, and we're going to pull in, and we're going to turn to the side, and we're going to park our cars there, and we're going to push our accessory dwelling unit in the back all the way up to that line of that public utility easement, because we can't go into the easement, but we can go right up to it. So, Mr. Cotton, do you have any objections to what we've shown in this site plan?
Well, the driveway, the way the driveway is designed with the parking in front of the structure, that's not allowed by Chapter 27, specifically the Seminole Heights Code. So you would have to actually expand the driveway coming in so you could have side-by-side parking on the driveway that goes back towards the house. I can't tell where the tree radius is, but it looks like you're probably closer than 10 feet to the tree in the back, the 24 inch and the 20x, whatever size that is, tree in the rear. So you're probably gonna have to scoot the accessory structure forward to get out of the protective radius for the tree.
Oh, shoot. So what you're telling me is that I've designed this and I've submitted it, and now I'm not compliant, so I have to go through the whole process again.
Nope, you just have to revise the site plan.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
that is one thing that, Patrick's been a little facetious, but we don't make you go, we don't just deny you outright. We do give you comments, and we will say you can, give you an opportunity to revise the plan to come into compliance.
okay. Well, I've taken your notes and I've considered them, and I've reread the code and I've learned a little bit about it. So I'm going to revise my site plan and resubmit it. And tell me, does this work a little bit better to meet the requirements of the code?
Yes, sir, that would.
Okay, because I've revised my driveway to meet the minimum requirements. I've got 36 by 16, which gives me my size of 2 parking spaces tandem and 1 off to the side. I've also shown my 20-foot protected tree radius for my 24-inch oak tree in the back, which now informs me that I have to push my accessory dwelling unit further forward to stay out of the protected root zone. So it puts me closer to the house, but at least now we're protecting that wonderful tree in the back. So with this plan, would I have a better chance of getting an approval?
Yes, I just wanted to comment. Yes, you would. I just want to comment on, there is still a building separation between the main structure and the accessory dwelling unit or the accessory structure. It's measured, it's a 5-foot wall-to-wall separation and a 3-foot eave-to-eave. So as you're scooting your property forward, you want to make sure you can still maintain that separation distance.
That's a very good point, because it's in the event of an emergency or a fire, I do want to have at least a minimum building separation to prevent damage from one structure to the other. And also to grant access to anybody who might need to come into this backyard and work in that public utility easement. So that's a very good point, and something that we should consider, that we don't want to jam too many buildings onto the property too close to one another. So if anybody has any specific questions about their property, obviously we've done a very high level overview in a very limited amount of time, so we're not going to be able to address every single aspect of the code. So if you have any specific questions you'd like to answer, you can always reach out to me, or you can reach out to the folks at the City of Tampa Zoning Department. And here's all of our contact information. Again, this will be shared on OSHNA's website, so if you don't get it written down now, we will definitely have this up for you to find. And with that, we will move into the questions and answers portion, and I will find our friends Lynn and Tim as soon as I can. Let's see here. Back in Zoom. How do I turn it back over? Sorry, folks, this is not my forte. Where is, let me find, all right. Lynn, I'm going to make you the host now, and this will be yours, and then take it away.
Okay.
Oh.
And I've still got Patrick on. You're not muted. All right, excellent. Lynn's just going to be helping me out through texting. So first of all, I'd like to thank Patrick. Clearly, you've got an absolute passion for this. You don't have to hire Patrick, even though he said you do. Yes, you do. We tried to work a little bit of humor into this. Hopefully, you know, the back and forth between him and Eric Cotton, who I'd also like to thank. Eric, we know this is after hours for you. You're a city employee, so we really do appreciate you spending a good solid hour online with us tonight. So multiple people asked about the presentation, a lot of content. Most of us are not, including myself, are not familiar with the majority of what Patrick was talking about. So we will post the slide deck onto our website. And the video, as soon as we can, we'll capture it and stick it onto the Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association YouTube page, so you can rewatch the video.
Interrupt. I want to quickly remind everyone that our website is oldseminoleHeights.org. Thank
you. That's a good point, Lynn. Not everybody knew that, but very good. oldseminoleHeights.org. And as far as the YouTube, if you search for Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association, you should find it. So again, we'll get that up there. Give us a little bit of time. It does take a while for the video to process. Again, Patrick, thank you very much. You obviously love what you do. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and if you want to bounce it over to Eric, that would be fine as well. One of the questions was if I have an extended family residence built, and then my in-law or my relative ends up moving out for whatever the reason is, how do I convert that to an ADU? Am I allowed to? That's a question.
You could, you would just have to go through a different special use process, only because the standards are a little bit different between the two. So if you had an extended family residence, it was like that for 7-8 years, it was no longer needed, and you wanted to turn it into a rental unit, you could go back through the special use process and get that approved.
Okay, and we obviously would have to look at the parking circumstances at that time, since extended family residences don't require the parking and an ADU does. Going to parking, there were a lot of questions about that. Patrick, you made the comment about not parking in front of your house. A lot of people misunderstood that, I think. Can you clarify, if it's an ADU, got to have one extra spot. If it's extended family residence, you don't have to have the extra spot. Talk about parking in front of the house, and then what about parking in an alley if there is place for a parking pad? You obviously can't park in the middle of the alley.
No, you can't park in the alley, but you can access your property from the alley if it is open and maintained. So you don't have to have a driveway from the front of your house if you are on an alley. For the parking in front of the house, you can't just pull up in front of your house and park. The code is written so that you don't have just wide driveways leading right up to your front door. The parking should be off to the side to maintain the aesthetic of the street and let the house actually be shown off. Parking the cars in front of the house really deters from having the residential building form code applied, because you would just see a sea of cars and it would be no different than driving down Florida Ave and driving in front of a used car lot. That's not the point of the neighborhood.
Okay, so even though clearly in our neighborhood with the narrow streets, 25 mile an hour, people do park in the street all the time, you're talking about for planning purposes, when you're looking to do new construction, you can't use the street parking as the required extra spot. Okay. Okay, and then I thought this was a very interesting one. Somebody was talking about a tiny house, which we would encourage for affordable housing, those who believe in that. But this particular question was, if I have a tiny house that's on wheels, could that be considered a ADU or a EFR?
The answer to the question is no. Right now, if it's on wheels, it's considered a recreational vehicle, and the code prohibits people from living in those full time.
You have to have permanent attachment to the site.
Right.
And by that, it has to have a foundation and be secured to current Florida building code requirements for hurricane preparedness.
And be hooked up to utilities and everything else that would normally go with a single family, with a typical residential use.
Okay, and again, we're not, the purpose of this is not to call out people that may be doing that kind of thing in our neighborhood. Everybody has different circumstances. This is more for planning and obviously being directly connected to the utilities, factors into all sorts of things. Thank you very much for the clarification on Acela. We obviously use that a lot to look up good neighbor notices. I didn't realize you could actually create an account in there, so that was very helpful. Another interesting question that came up, how does Seminole Heights compare to Hyde Park when it comes to ADUs and EFRs?
Well, extended family residences are special uses anywhere in the city. They're available in Hyde Park, Seminole Heights, Tampa Heights, Palmacia, Beach Park, wherever. For accessory dwelling units, they were specifically called out when Seminole Heights, when the form-based code was adopted by council. I think it was back in 2010 at this point. That was a specific use that was allowed in the use table. So that's the difference between Seminole Heights and the majority, 90% of the rest of the city it's not allowed anywhere but in Seminole Heights. There's a lot of the NMU districts, which is basically where West River is being located, the old housing projects along Main and Boulevard, and allowed out by Lowry Park. But other than that, they're not allowed anywhere else. So that's the main difference between Hyde Park or anywhere else in the city and Seminole Heights. That use was specifically called out when council adopted the Seminole Heights Code.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Patrick, anything to add there?
No, I think he covered it.
Okay. So just a couple more and then we're going to wrap up, getting close to the 7:30 time. Trees, both grand trees and protected trees in our area are something that a lot of our residents value. A lot of people in our neighborhood maybe moved here for the tree canopy that we have. So there was a lot of questions about protecting trees. I think those are more individual scenarios. You walk through two of them showing the barriers that have got to be put around trees and how buildings can be moved. I just wanted to acknowledge that trees are important to the area. We had some questions about existing sheds or existing garages, if they can be either torn down or retrofitted, either adding an ADU above or creating, doing a tear down. Do you have any thoughts on that, Patrick?
You know, there's a lot of different ways to look at what you've got on your property. A lot of people come to me and say, you know, I've got this building, I want to convert it to an extended family residence or an accessory dwelling unit, but the building may be in disrepair and it would honestly cost as much or more to mitigate any of the issues to turn that space into a viable living space than it would be to just replace it in its entirety. Other times people have buildings that are in decent shape and they can be converted. So it is kind of a per case scenario that you have to analyze the existing structure to be able to really tell someone what their opportunities are there.
Okay, fair enough. So I think the last question, and again, lots of folks putting ideas in the chat. We will try to create a either a frequently asked question or like a Q&A document. I know part of this was covered. I may have missed it. You gave us the sizes, Eric, on the ADU. How about the extended family residence? And the ADU, as a reminder, if I got it right, it's if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, which is very typical here, 50-foot frontage, 100 feet deep, 5,000 square feet, that would limit you to 750 square feet. The maximum is 950. So if you had a much larger lot, you could put that 950 up. But what about for extended family residence? What are the sizes?
Well, the maximum size for an extended family residence for the living area is 600 square feet. So even if you're in Seminole Heights and you have a larger lot, but you want to do an extended family for your mom or your father, whomever, the maximum size of the living area is 600 square feet. But if your lot's big enough, you could have 350 square feet of storage attached to that also. That does not count back towards the square footage of the EFR.
Okay, so 600 square foot for an EFR and then an added 300 for storage.
Yeah, if your lot was large enough
If
to
your
allow
lot-
like the total 950 square feet.
Right. All right, terrific. Well, I'm going to give everybody a chance. I don't know what people can see on their screen at this point. I'm starting to see a few people's faces. So hello to all you folks out there. We at one point had 85, I think it was 85 folks. So that's fantastic. Again, thank you very much to Patrick. Folks, I hope you realize how much time and effort goes into putting something like this in. We had to do a practice, and he and Eric did a lot of coordination to make sure that the content was accurate. So if you have ideas for future presentations like this, we've started compiling a list. And again, when this is open to everyone in our area, it's not exclusive to our neighborhood association. We did invite Hampton Terrace, Seminole Heights East, East, Seminole Heights Southeast, and Seminole Heights South. But I also saw some of the news folks and county commissioners were jumping in and out of the presentation. So again, kudos to both Patrick and Eric. Thank you very much for all the time that you put into this effort.
Welcome.
And if I could just interrupt for just one moment, I want to say that I'm collecting all the questions. And someone asked if we could do a quick maybe workup to answer some of the generalities around them, and we'll try to do that. If you have any other questions, I'm going to leave this up for just a couple more minutes. And if you want to add questions in, I will try to get them to Patrick and Eric. So maybe we can come up with some general answers. Thanks again for everyone. We appreciate both Patrick and Eric's time tonight.
Thank you
Thanks,
for the
Len.
opportunity. Eric, thank you again for all your help.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
All right, we'll see you all around the neighborhood.
Well, y'all have a good night.